Hey, what's up everyone? Today, got a very exciting new product to talk about. Now, it is the 14mm 1.8 G Master by Sony. We're over here at Mount Bonnell today, got some gorgeous landscape views. The sun is not setting quite yet, but we're gonna be able to test some ghosting, flaring with this lens. Now, before we get into the testing, we're gonna talk about some quick specs. One of the most notable things about this lens is the overall size of it. It is coming in at only 460 grams. Now, a friend of mine, Alex Sexton, he owns the 14 1.8 by Sigma, and he was very excited that this lens was gonna come out soon. And the reason he told me for that was just the size of it. He loves his 14 1.8 by Sigma, but he said it never made it into his bag when he was taking everything on the go. So he was really excited for this one. And that's the biggest thing that I noticed straight out the box. I mean, the overall weight distribution feels really good in your hand. Doing landscape stuff, if you're not trying to take a tripod with you, great reason for it to be lightweight as well. So it's exciting to see Sony doing a lot of great things with their G Master lineup and coming out with not just camera bodies, but lenses as well. So really excited to see that. This lens is going to have 9-bladed aperture inside of it. So that's gonna give you some round bokeh. Now, being a 14mm, don't expect crazy depth of field, blurred out background, ginormous bokeh balls in the background. That's not something you're gonna get with a 14mm. But if you do move closer to your subject, you will start to see a little blur in the background. You get minor, smaller bokeh balls. So nice thing to have on this lens, it being a 1.8, super fast, and you get a little bit of blurred out background. We are going to get a minimum focusing distance of 25 centimeters. And our minimum aperture is going to be f/16, and it's going to open up all the way to f/1.8. This lens is using an XD linear motor, so of course, it being Sony, paired with that motor, we're gonna get very fast and precise autofocus, and not other than that, it's also gonna be very reliable with this lens. This lens consists of 14 elements and 11 groups. We also get our Nano AR2 coating and fluorine coating on the optics as well. Now, the Nano AR2 coating is going to be a coating that they put on this front element that's gonna help with ghost and flaring. And it's also gonna help with reflections inside the lens because the front element is so curved. And then the fluorine coating, you see this in a lot of other lenses, but what that's helping with is going to be like dust, moisture, any smudges that you can get on the lens as well. The two XA elements stand for extreme aspherical. Now, what this is helping is with field curvature, coma, and astigmatism. So for lack of a better word, it's gonna make this lens a badass astrophotography lens. Now, the ED coatings that you get inside of the lens, that's gonna stand for extra low dispersion. Now, what this is gonna help you with, it's gonna help for chromatic aberration and ghosting and flaring. Now, I'm gonna test that here in a bit, but I have seen images where people are basically shooting landscapes with the sun just directly into the lens, and it handled ghosting and flaring quite well, so really excited to test that out as well. Now we're gonna talk about the overall construct of the lens. So like I said, it is super lightweight, coming in at 460 grams. On the exterior, we're going to get a aperture ring from 1.8 all the way to f/16. We also have the A button you can switch over to if you wanna control the aperture from the camera body itself. Speaking of the aperture, we also are going to get a declickable aperture function. So if you're not a fan of having the hard stops, just turn that on and it's gonna be smooth for you. On the side of the lens, we're going to get a customizable button, which is really nice to have. And then we're also gonna get a autofocus and manual focus switch. Now, one thing that you are gonna notice right off the bat is that there is not gonna be a filter thread on the front end of the lens. If you are going to wanna use filters on this lens, however, on the rear side, there's a cutout that you can use gels inside of. All right, so that's gonna be the brief specs. We're gonna talk over this lens. Like I mentioned earlier, we are here at Mount Bonnell, so we got some gorgeous views. The sun's gonna be setting fairly soon. So let's get right into it. All right, so you might be noticing the video's a little bit different now. So I usually say we're gonna get to the final thoughts when we're at the end of a video and then just jump right into it. And sometimes we do that just for time restrictions. Sometimes we get these lenses or these cameras for like one day to shoot with and produce the whole video. Today was a little different, so me and Todd Todd and myself had the idea of let's do the final thoughts after. So before I ramble, I'm at the store today and I'm gonna give you the final thoughts on the 14mm 1.8 G Master. So I took the photos home. I was able to actually edit them, throw them into Lightroom. And the first thing that I do wanna talk about is the distortion on it. The distortion was little to none, especially in the center. So there's some images I'm gonna pop up on the screen right now that I was taking of over the river, I guess you could say, and there's a bunch of like lighting poles, or they're not lighting poles, there's a bunch of like electrical poles or whatever they are in the background. And as you can see, like straight in the middle, they are just straight on. Now, there's another example with those poles in the background. If you zoom in and look, it's in the very far left corner, and that's when you're starting to get a little bit of distortion. So the biggest thing that I loved on this was the distortion. Now, flaring, ghosting, all of that, the coatings that Sony added into this lens, it handles it very, very well. Now, there was some instances where you could see a little bit of flaring coming in from the sun. There's a photo of my dog, Tipsy. Now, if you look at the photo I'm talking about, like on her chest, you see this little bit of flaring pop up on there. And that's easily correctable. So got to commend Sony for all the coatings they put on that because it handled it really nicely. But once again, you can see a little bit of flaring sometimes. There also was another example of minor flaring when I was scaring Todd and sitting on the edge and taking just like a cool photo of my feet. If you look in the tree line, like directly in the middle, and we're gonna punch in on this for you to see, you also get that very small little flaring that we saw similar with the picture of Tipsy that I took. Just another example of flaring that I was getting with this lens. But once again, I mean, the sun was like directly inside the lens, so really happy with how it handled it overall. Chromatic aberration, little to none. Now, if I did see chromatic aberration, it was in the trees, kind of like on the lower edges of the frame, if that makes any sense. But it wasn't bad enough to where it wasn't correctable. I mean, all I had to do was just press the chromatic aberration, fixing it in Lightroom, and it cleaned it up, no problem whatsoever. And then another thing that I did want to talk about as well was the sharpness. So overall, this lens is super, super sharp at 1.8. There is a shot where I'm taking a photo of the stairs. Now, if you zoom into, let's say, the center of the frame, or even off to a little bit to the left side of the, I guess it's like the rock walls, the 1.8 versus the 2.8, you can definitely see there's a difference in sharpness, but without comparing the two, just at 1.8, I thought it was overall very, very sharp. And then same thing when I was taking a photo of the, I guess the fencing area. If you zoom in on there, you can actually see it's a little bit more sharper on the 2.8, which is obviously expected, but being a 1.8 wide angle, still think it's phenomenal and very, very sharp. So that is gonna bring us to a wrap on this lens. Now, let me know what you think down in the comments down below. If you like this style a little bit more, where we actually are reviewing the photos afterwards and able to punch in and zoom in and actually give you a little bit more in-depth review on what we actually thought of the lens. And once again, remember, I'm gonna put the links down below to get your pre-order in with Precision Camera and Video. And like always, like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you on our next video.